Hey there, I'm Sarah Thompson, 32 years old, and absolutely thriving in my marketing career. My husband Mike and I are living the dream in our cozy suburban home, a place we work our tails off to afford. It's not a mansion, but it's ours, and that's what matters. On the surface, everything with Mike's parents, Robert and Linda Carter, seems great. We host big family dinners and are always ready to lend a hand when needed. But beneath that picture-perfect facade, there's more tension brewing than in a pot of my mom's famous chili. Just last Sunday, we had them over for our usual monthly dinner. I spent the whole day whipping up a pot roast, determined to impress Linda. As we sat down to eat, Robert cleared his throat. "Sarah, this looks amazing. You've really outdone yourself this time." I beamed, feeling a surge of pride. "Thanks, Robert. I hope it tastes as good as it looks." We started eating, and for a while, the only sounds were forks scraping plates. Then Linda chimed in, "Of Sarah, I meant to ask, you work in marketing, right? We were wondering if you could give us some advice on a little business venture we're considering." I nearly choked on my green beans. This wasn't the first time they'd fished for financial advice, and alarm bells started ringing in my head. "Oh, what kind of venture?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Robert jumped in, eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's an amazing opportunity a friend told me about. We could double our money in just a few months." I exchanged a glance with Mike, who looked just as uneasy as I felt. "That sounds interesting," I said cautiously. "But high returns usually come with high risks. Maybe we could look at the details together." Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't worry about that. We trust our friend. Actually, we were hoping you might help us out with a small loan to get started, just a few $1,000s. The pot roast suddenly felt like a brick in my stomach. This wasn't the first time they'd asked for money, and it always made me uneasy. But whenever I voiced my concerns to Mike, he'd say, "They're family, Sarah. We have to help out when we can." I forced a smile. "Why don't we discuss this after dinner? Let's enjoy the food while it's hot." But as the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I told myself I was overreacting. They were family after all. What could possibly go wrong? Little did I know that uneasy feeling was a warning of the storm about to hit our lives. If only I had listened to it sooner. It was just another Tuesday when my world came crashing down. I was deep into a marketing campaign when my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was our bank. Weird, I thought, but I picked up anyway. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Jerry from First National Bank. I'm calling about your missed mortgage payments." I nearly dropped the phone. "Missed payments? There must be some mistake. We've never missed a payment in our lives." Jerry's voice was sympathetic but firm. "I'm afraid there's no mistake, Mrs. Thompson. You're 3 months behind." My head started spinning. I thanked Jerry and immediately called Mike. "Honey, we need to go to the bank." "Now?" An hour later, we were sitting across from a bank manager, staring at documents we'd never seen before. My stomach churned as I recognized the forged signatures, a crude imitation of our own. "This can't be happening," Mike muttered, his face pale. Over the next few days, we pieced together what had happened. The trail led straight to Robert and Linda. They had somehow used our house as collateral for a massive loan, then defaulted on it. When we confronted them, it was like a scene from a bad movie. We stood in the living room, the air thick with tension. "How could you do this to us?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. Robert at least had the decency to look ashamed. Linda, on the other hand, was all indignation. "We had no choice," she cried. "It was a foolproof investment opportunity. We were going to pay it all back before you even noticed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Foolproof? You put our home at risk for some get-rich-quick scheme." Mike, usually the calm one, was seething. "Do you have any idea what you've done? We could lose everything." Robert tried to placate us. Now, let's not overreact. We can fix this. We just need a little more time." I cut him off. "Time? You've had months. The bank is talking about foreclosure, for God's sake." Linda had the audacity to look offended. "Well, if you had just loaned us the money when we asked, none of this would have happened." I saw red. "Are you seriously trying to blame us for your fraud?" Mike put a hand on my arm, his voice dangerously quiet. "I think we're done here. We'll be talking to our lawyer. Don't contact us again." As we left, I felt like I was in a daze. How could the people who were supposed to love us betray us so completely? Back home, the reality of our situation hit me like a ton of bricks. Our dream home, the one we'd worked so hard for, was at risk because of their greed and stupidity. I broke down, sobbing in Mike's arms. What are we going to do? He held me tight, his voice determined. We're going to fight, Sarah. We're not going down without a fight. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I realized something. The unease I felt all those months ago wasn't just paranoia. It was my instinct trying to protect us. And from now on, I was going to listen to it. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of our battle. But one thing was certain. I wasn't about to let Robert and Linda Carter destroy everything we built. They had no idea who they were messing with. The next morning, I was up before dawn, fueled by a mix of anger and determination. I'd spent half the night researching lawyers and found Amanda Rees, a shark in a power suit who specialized in fraud cases. By 9 a.m., I was in her office. So, Mrs. Thompson, walk me through what happened, Amanda said, her sharp eyes focused on me. I laid out the whole sordid tale, watching her expression darken. This is serious, but we can fight it. I'll start the legal proceedings immediately. As Amanda worked her magic, I decided to do some digging of my own. I started with a call to Mike's cousin Tom. Sarah, what's up? Tom, I need to ask you something. Have Robert and Linda ever asked you for money? There was a long pause. Yeah, they did. I lost my entire savings in some can't-miss investment opportunity. Why? My heart sank. You're not the only one. Over the next few weeks, I uncovered a trail of financial destruction. Aunt Martha, our old neighbor Jim, even Linda's own sister, all victims of the Carters' schemes. I gathered statements, documented losses, and built a case that made my blood boil. One night, as I pored over the evidence, Mike walked in looking exhausted. Sarah, it's 2 a.m. Come to bed. I shook my head. I can't. I'm so close to cracking this. Mike sighed. You need to rest. We both do. I felt a flare of irritation. How can you think about rest when we could lose everything? And how is running yourself into the ground going to help? He snapped back. We stared at each other, the tension palpable. This wasn't us. We never fought like this. I'm sorry, I said softly. I can't let them win. Mike's expression softened. He came over and wrapped his arms around me. We won't. But we need to do this together, okay? I nodded, realizing how much this was affecting us both. The next day, I met with Amanda to share my findings. This is gold, Sarah, she said, flipping through the documents. With this, we can not only save your house, but potentially bring charges against the Carters. I felt a glimmer of hope. So what's our next move? We gather all the victims, strength in numbers, and then we go after the Carters with everything we've got. I spent the next few days reaching out to everyone Robert and Linda had swindled. It wasn't easy. Some were ashamed, others afraid, but slowly they came around. We held a meeting at our house. The living room was packed, the air thick with shared anger and pain. They took everything from us, Aunt Martha sobbed. Jim, our ex-neighbor, nodded grimly, promised to double my retirement fund. Now I'm back to working part-time at 70. As I listened to their stories, my resolve strengthened. This wasn't just about Mike and me anymore. It was about justice for everyone the Carters had hurt. We're going to make this right, I promised them. Together we're going to make sure Robert and Linda can never do this to anyone else. As everyone left, Mike pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, you know that? I smiled, feeling truly hopeful for the first time in weeks. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're fighting back, Mike finished, his voice resolute, and we're doing it as a team. That night, as we lay in bed, I felt a shift. The fear and anger were still there, but now there was something else too. Determination, hope, and the unshakable knowledge that no matter what happened next, Mike and I would face it together. Little did Robert and Linda know, their day of reckoning was coming, and I was going to make damn sure they never saw it coming. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt like I was going to be sick. As we walked into the courtroom, I saw Robert and Linda for the first time in months. They looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. Amanda squeezed my arm. You've got this, Sarah. Just tell the truth. As I took the stand, I locked eyes with Linda. She looked away first. Mrs. Thompson, can you tell the court what happened? I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The forged documents, the unauthorized loan, the years of manipulation. With each word, I felt stronger. And it wasn't just us, I concluded. They've been doing this for years to countless others. The defense tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, but Amanda was relentless. She brought forward victim after victim, each story more damning than the last. Halfway through the proceedings, a commotion erupted in the gallery. A man I didn't recognize burst in, waving papers. "Your Honor, I have information relevant to this case." Turns out, karma had perfect timing. The Carters' foolproof investment had just imploded spectacularly, taking what was left of their money with it. As the judge reviewed the new evidence, I watched Robert and Linda crumble. It was over, and they knew it. The verdict came swiftly. Not only did we keep our house, but Robert and Linda were facing serious jail time and multiple lawsuits. Outside the courthouse, Mike hugged me tight. "We did it, Sarah. It's over." But it wasn't over, not really. As we drove home, I couldn't shake the faces of all the other victims. "Mike," I said suddenly, "I want to start a support group for people like us who've been victims of financial fraud." He smiled. "I think that's a great idea." Over the next few months, we rebuilt our lives. We cut all ties with Robert and Linda. Last I heard, they were serving time in separate prisons. Good riddance. Our support group grew quickly. Every week, we'd meet in our living room, the same room where this whole nightmare started, but now, instead of tension and betrayal, it was filled with hope and healing. One night, after everyone had left, Mike found me staring out the window. "Penny, for your thoughts." I turned to him, feeling a wave of gratitude. "I was just thinking, as horrible as this all was, I'm almost glad it happened." He raised an eyebrow. "Really?" I nodded. "It taught me to trust my instincts. It showed me how strong we are together. And now we're helping others. That's pretty amazing, don't you think?" Mike pulled me close. "You're pretty amazing." As we stood there in the home we fought so hard to keep, I realized something. The Carters had tried to take everything from us, but they failed. In fact, they'd given us something invaluable. The knowledge that we could face anything as long as we faced it together. Life isn't always fair. Sometimes the people who should love you the most end up hurting you the worst. But here's what I've learned. It's not about avoiding betrayal. It's about how you rise above it, how you take that pain and turn it into something meaningful. And that's exactly what we did, one day at a time, one person at a time. We're making a difference, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. If you were in my position, would you have ever considered forgiving Robert and Linda for what they did? Is there a line that, once crossed, makes reconciliation impossible, even with family? Hi, I'm Lisa. As a dedicated architect, I've not only designed buildings but also built a stable and accomplished life for myself. By 32, I was living in a home of my own design. A true dream turned reality. This achievement stood in stark contrast to my younger sister Rachel's approach to life. At 27, she preferred taking the easy route, relying heavily on our parents for support. Our relationship had always been a bit strained, largely due to Rachel's tendency to stir up drama whenever she felt overshadowed. Despite this, I tried to maintain peace and offer support, even though it often felt one-sided. "Lisa, you're always so put together. Must be nice not having any real problems," Rachel would tease, her voice dripping with a mix of envy and sarcasm. "I've had my fair share, Rachel. Just because I don't broadcast them doesn't mean they don't exist," I'd reply, trying to keep the peace. When Rachel announced her engagement to Mike, a guy she'd been dating for just a few months, I was hopeful yet cautious. This could be her chance to finally mature and take responsibility for her own life. "He's amazing, Lisa. You'll see he's different from the rest," Rachel gushed one evening as we sat in my living room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "That's great, Rachel. I really hope it works out," I replied, masking my reservations with a smile. "How did you two meet?" "At that yoga retreat I went to last spring. It was like an instant connection," she explained, fluttering her hands dramatically. Our parents were thrilled, immediately throwing themselves into wedding planning. They had a soft spot for Rachel and often indulged her more whimsical desires. I couldn't help but feel a bit sidelined, as usual, the responsible, reliable one. "Lisa dear, we were thinking a wedding could be in your backyard. It's just perfect," my mom proposed one afternoon, her tone hopeful. I hesitated, my heart sinking a bit. "We can talk about it, sure. Let's see what Rachel thinks." As much as I wanted to be supportive, I was also protective of my space, my sanctuary. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of what would become one of the most outrageous demands Rachel would ever make on me. During a family dinner, the air was light with excitement over Rachel's upcoming wedding, until the moment she dropped a bombshell on me. Since we're all here, I have something important to ask. Lisa, you know how much I love your house, right? It's just perfect for Mike and me to start our married life. I choked on my water, coughing a little as I processed her words. You're joking, right? Not at all. It's way too big for just you, and what better gift than helping your little sister out? Our parents exchanged uneasy glances, clearly torn. Lisa, maybe it's something to think about. It could really help Rachel and Mike, Mom suggested gently, trying to smooth things over. Dad, what do you think? I was desperate for some support, looking toward him with pleading eyes. Well, it is an unusual request, but it's also an opportunity for us to keep the family close. Dad added, his voice neutral. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to give up my home, the home I built from scratch, as a wedding gift? Rachel's eyes widened, feigning surprise. It's not like I'm asking for a handout. Think of it as passing it on to family. Isn't that what families do? Help each other. Helping is one thing. This is something else entirely, I retorted, feeling the tension rise. It's just a house, Lisa. You can always build another. Rachel chimed in, her tone dismissive. Just a house. Rachel, you know how hard I've worked for it. It's not about the bricks and mortar. It's about what it represents. Mom tried to mediate. Maybe there's a way to make everyone happy. Lisa, could you at least think it over for the family? As the meal progressed, the atmosphere soured. Each comment from Rachel felt like another jab, another reminder that my hard work was being undervalued. You're being really selfish, Lisa. I thought you'd be happy to support me on my big day. Supporting your wedding and giving away my home are two very different things, Rachel, Dad sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Let's not turn this dinner into an argument. Lisa, take some time to think it over. All right. I nodded, more out of a desire to end the conversation than any agreement. As the dinner wrapped up, the weight of the conversation hung over me like a dark cloud. I needed a plan, a way to show them the absurdity of Rachel's request without tearing the family apart. That night, as I lay in bed, the walls of my home felt more precious than ever. The idea of handing over my sanctuary was unimaginable, yet the pressure from my family was real and pressing. I knew something had to be done, and simply refusing wasn't going to be enough. They needed to see Rachel's true colors, and I had just the idea to make that happen. After tossing and turning all night, I decided to call Mike. Surprisingly, he was just as frustrated as I was with Rachel's demands. Listen, Mike, I think we need to show her what it really means to own a home. It's not all dinner parties and decorating. Exactly, Lisa. She doesn't understand half of what goes into it. What do you have in mind? How about a trial period? Rachel moves in thinking she'll inherit the house. But we set up real-life challenges. Let her handle everything I do daily, from bills to unexpected repairs. Mike paused, then chuckled. You're serious? Like a reality check, yes. But it has to look supportive, not like a setup. Can you handle being on the inside? You bet. I'll make sure she doesn't suspect a thing. The next day, I invited Rachel over, putting on my best big sister face. So I've been thinking about your proposal, and maybe there's a way to work this out. How about a trial period? You and Mike move in and handle everything. If after 3 months it feels right, we can talk about transferring the house. Rachel's eyes lit up. Really? You do that? Of course, I replied. But it's not just about living here. It's about managing everything, bills, maintenance, the whole deal. Sounds easy enough, right, babe? Rachel turned to Mike, who nodded enthusiastically. Great, let's start this weekend. I'll help you settle in. As they moved in, I laid out the homeowner's handbook I had created, complete with budget sheets and a schedule of maintenance tasks. The first challenge was simple. A clogged sink. Just call a plumber, right? Rachel asked, scrolling through her phone. Nope, you're going to fix it. That's what homeowners do, I insisted, handing her a plunger and a wrench. Mike reported to me daily. She's already complaining. Missed her nail appointment because she had to wait for the HVAC guy. The hidden cameras I'd installed for security, which I'd informed them about, captured every tantrum and mishap. Rachel struggling to reset a tripped breaker, her meltdown over the lawnmower not starting, and her fury when the weekly budget fell short. Each day brought new challenges. I made sure the problems were just tough enough to push her but still believable as regular homeownership woes. Why is everything breaking? Rachel exclaimed one evening as another appliance had cuped. That's home life, Rachel. Things happen, I replied, hiding my smirk. As the weeks passed, Rachel's facade began to crack. Complaints piled up, and her true nature surfaced more with each passing day. Mike kept me updated, but he was growing wary too. This was a good idea, Lisa, but I'm not sure how much more I can take. She's not the person I thought she was. Just a bit longer, Mike. I think everyone needs to see this, especially our parents. The final week approached, and I planned a grand final. A mock house assessment to test all that Rachel had learned. The family was invited to see the results, setting the stage for what I hoped would be a revealing conclusion to this little experiment. As the family gathered, curious to see how Rachel had managed, the backyard was set up like a small festival. Everyone was in a jovial mood, unaware of the brewing storm. So Rachel, ready to show us how you've handled the house? I asked, handing her a checklist of the day's tasks. This is ridiculous, Lisa. Why do I need to prove anything? Rachel snapped, her patience thinning. It's all part of the trial. Everyone's here to support you. As Rachel attempted the first task, fixing a leaky faucet, the problems began. The faucet had been rigged to be a bit more troublesome than usual, a final test of her problem-solving skills. Why will this thing just work? Rachel's voice rose in frustration, echoing through the backyard as our relatives watched. You have to tighten it more, maybe, Mike suggested, trying to guide her without stepping in. I am tightening it, Mike. Nothing's happening. Moving on, Rachel was to balance the monthly budget. I had slightly altered the numbers as they wouldn't quite add up, testing her attention to detail and patience. This doesn't make any sense. These numbers are off, Rachel exclaimed, throwing down the pen. It should all be there, Rachel. Maybe take another look, I urged, keeping my tone neutral. I've looked 3 times, Lisa. Are you sure you didn't mess this up just to make me look bad? The final straw came with the lawn maintenance. Overnight, I'd had extra fast-growing grass seed spread, which made the yard look like it hadn't been mowed in weeks. Now for the lawn, Rachel. It seems to have grown quite a bit, huh? I remarked casually. This is impossible. It wasn't this high yesterday. Did you do this, Lisa? Rachel's face was a mix of anger and desperation. No, why would I do that? Grass grows, you know. That's part of having a home. I can't do this anymore. You set this all up to fail. You never wanted to give me the house. Her outburst caught everyone's attention. Mom and Dad looked on, bewildered by the scene unfolding. Rachel, calm down. Let's talk about this. Mom tried to intervene. No, Mom, you need to see how Lisa has been torturing me with these impossible tasks. She's been setting me up to fail this whole time. The family gathering, meant to be a celebration, turned into a spectacle of Rachel's meltdown. As difficult as it was, this was the moment of truth, revealing not just the condition of the house, but the true dynamics at play. After Rachel's public meltdown, the atmosphere was thick with tension and disbelief. As she stormed off into the house, tears streaming down her face, Mom and Dad approached me, their expressions heavy with regret. We're so sorry, Lisa. We never realized how much pressure we put on you, or how unreasonable Rachel's demands were, Mom said softly. It's not just about the house, Mom. It's about respecting each other's lives and efforts. I hope Rachel sees that now, I replied. Dad nodded, his usual jovial demeanor subdued. We've been too lenient with her, always making excuses. It's time we all took responsibility for our actions, especially Rachel. I turned towards Mike, who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy for him. I'm calling off the wedding, Lisa. I can't marry into this dynamic. It's not healthy for anyone, Mike said, his voice laced with resignation. You have to do what's best for you, Mike. I'm sorry it had to end this way. He managed a weak smile. Thanks for opening my eyes, Lisa. I hope Rachel learns from this. I really do. As the guests left, their murmurs of the day's drama echoing in the air, I took a moment to savor the quiet of my home. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. The next morning, Rachel joined me in the kitchen, her eyes puffy from crying, her voice shaky. I'm sorry, Lisa. I didn't realize how out of line I was until I saw everyone's reactions yesterday. It's a start, Rachel, but apologies are just the beginning. You need to make some real changes. I know, I'm going to start therapy and find a place for Mike and me. Well, just me now, she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. That sounds like a good plan. Remember, Rachel, respect isn't given. It's earned, and that starts with respecting yourself enough to take responsibility for your life. Rachel nodded, a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. I'll try, Lisa. Really, I will. As the house slowly returned to its usual serene state, Mom and Dad began to see our family dynamics in a new light. They started setting boundaries with Rachel, who moved into a small apartment, began therapy, and took a more active role in managing her finances and life. It was a long road ahead, but there was hope that she could turn her life around. Meanwhile, I reclaimed my space and peace, focusing on my career and personal growth. The entire ordeal taught me the importance of boundaries and the strength it takes to maintain them. In the end, the house remained my sanctuary, a symbol of my hard work and dedication. And as for Rachel, with a bit of luck and a lot of work, maybe she'd find her own way, building something truly her own, rooted in reality and respect, not entitlement. The story of Lisa and Rachel has come to an end, but the conversation doesn't have to. What do you think about Lisa's decision to put Rachel through the homeownership test? Was it a fair strategy to expose Rachel's entitlement, or do you think there were better ways to handle the situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story and want to catch more like it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hi there, I'm Sarah Johnson, a 25-year-old with a brand new MBA in hand, ready to conquer the business world. My husband, Michael, says he's supportive of my career ambitions, but sometimes I wonder. Like last Sunday, we were having dinner with his parents, a regular weekly tradition that's more of an endurance test than a meal. My father-in-law, Robert, is a big-shot local businessman who thinks the world revolves around his success. So Sarah, Robert says, cutting into his steak with the precision of a surgeon dissecting my dreams, found a nice little hobby to keep you busy now that school's done. I force a smile. Actually, Robert, I'm exploring some exciting career opportunities. He scoffs. Career? The only career a woman needs is running a good home. Michael suddenly finds his mashed potatoes fascinating, and my mother-in-law, Linda, sips her wine, staying out of it. Later that week, I'm unloading my frustrations to my best friend, Emily, over lattes at our favorite coffee shop. Don't let that old dinosaur get to you, Emily says, squeezing my hand. You're brilliant, and any company would be lucky to have you. I sigh. I know, but it feels like I'm swimming against the current sometimes. Emily grins. Then be a salmon. They swim upstream and still make it. Just then, my younger sister Jessica joins us, excitement written all over her face. Sarah, you won't believe it. I got an A on my business project. The teacher said I reminded her of you. I smiled, proud. That's amazing, Jess. Keep it up, and you'll be running your own company in no time. As we're leaving, my phone buzzes, an email from that big firm I've been dreaming of. My heart races as I open it. Oh my God, I whisper. Emily and Jessica crowd around. What is it? I look up grinning. I got the job offer. They squeal and hug me tightly. We have to celebrate, Jessica says. My birthday's coming up. How about we throw a party and you can announce the job then? As we start planning, I feel a mix of excitement and nerves. This party could change everything, but am I ready for what's next? The night of the party arrives, and everything is perfect. My parents are beaming with pride, and even Michael seems genuinely happy for me. I catch Emily's eye across the room, and she gives me a thumbs up. It's time. I clink my glass to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming. I have some exciting news. But before I can continue, Robert, reeking of whiskey, stumbles forward. Hold up there, little lady. I've got something to say first. My stomach drops. This can't be good. You all think you're here to celebrate. He slurs, waving his drink. But I'm here to mourn. Mourn the death of traditional values. The room goes silent, all eyes on me. Sarah here thinks she's too good to be a proper wife. Thinks she needs a career. He spits the word like it's poison. Robert, please. Linda tries to intervene, but he shoves her aside. You know what I think of your fancy education. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out my diploma. How did he even get that? Before anyone can react, he flicks a lighter, and flames lick at the edges of my hard-earned degree. A woman's place is in the kitchen, he bellows, dropping the burning paper to the floor. The silence is deafening as I stare at the charred remains of my diploma, feeling like I'm trapped in a nightmare. Michael, I whisper, turning to my husband, desperate for him to say something, anything. But Michael just stands there, eyes downcast, as silent as a statue. Tears blur my vision, and I can't take it anymore. I run from the room, hearing Emily call after me, but I can't stop. I burst onto the porch, gasping for air. Emily catches up and wraps her arms around me. Sarah, I'm so sorry. That was horrible. How could he do that? I sob into her shoulder. And Michael, he just stood there. Jessica appears, her face flushed with anger. I can't believe that just happened. We should call the cops or something. And say what? I laugh bitterly through my tears. That my father-in-law burned a piece of paper. In this town, they'd probably give him a medal. My parents join us on the porch, both looking shell-shocked. Sweetheart, my mom starts, but I cut her off. Don't. Just don't. I can't deal with this right now. I watch as guests begin to leave, whispering among themselves. Michael finally emerges, looking lost and unsure. Sarah, not now, Michael, I say, holding up a hand. I can't even look at you right now. As the last of the guests trickle out, I'm left standing on the porch with Emily and Jessica. The party decorations flutter sadly in the breeze, a mocking reminder of the celebration we had planned. What am I going to do? I whisper, more to myself than anyone else. Emily squeezes my hand. You're going to pick yourself up and show them what you're made of. This isn't the end, Sarah. It's just the beginning. I nod, but inside, I'm not so sure. How can I stay in this marriage, in this family, after what just happened? For the first time since I said I do, I'm questioning everything about my life here, and I have no idea what comes next. The weeks after my birthday disaster are a blur. Most days, I can barely get out of bed. Michael tiptoes around me like I'm made of glass, and I can't decide if I'm grateful for his caution or furious at his silence. One particularly bad day, Emily barges in, throwing open the curtains. Rise and shine, sleeping beauty, we're going out. I groan, pulling the covers over my head. Leave me alone, Em. Not a chance. Come on, Jess is waiting in the car. Somehow, they drag me to a little cafe downtown. Jessica slides a latte in front of me. Okay, sis, enough wallowing. What's the game plan? I stare into my coffee. Maybe I should just give up. Keep the peace, you know. Emily nearly chokes on her drink. Are you kidding me? And let that old fossil win? No way, Sarah. Jessica leans in closer. You've always been my hero. Don't let them take that away. Their words hit me hard, and I realize I've been letting Robert win all this time. You're right, I say, straightening up. Michael tries to play peacemaker. Sarah, what if we moved to the city for your job? I look at him, really look at him. Would you actually support me there? Or would you just hide from your father? His silence is answer enough. Things take an unexpected turn when Emily calls me later that week, her voice hushed. Sarah, you need to come to the bank. When I arrive, Emily pulls me into an empty office, her face serious. I was going through some old files, and well, look at this. She spreads up documents showing glaring discrepancies in Robert's business accounts. Large sums disappearing and reappearing in offshore accounts. This looks like tax evasion, I whisper, feeling a chill run down my spine. Maybe even fraud. What are you going to do? Emily asks, her eyes searching mine. I stare at the papers, my mind racing. Part of me craves revenge, wants to see Robert pay for everything he's done. But another part hesitates. Despite everything, he's still family. That night, I can't sleep. I watch Michael snoring peacefully beside me and realize something. I don't want this anymore. I deserve better. I deserve someone who will stand by me, who believes in me. The next morning, I make 2 calls. The first is to the firm in a city accepting their job offer. The second is to a divorce lawyer. When Michael comes home, he finds me packing. Sarah, what's going on? I take a deep breath. I'm leaving, Michael. I'm taking the job in the city. But I thought we were going to move together, he stammers. I shake my head. No, Michael, I'm going alone. I need a fresh start, away from all of this. His face crumples. Is this about my father? I'll stand up to him, I swear. It's too late for that, I say, zipping up my suitcase. I need someone who doesn't wait until I'm walking out the door to find their backbone. As I load my car, I feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I'm excited about the future. Whatever comes next, I know I can handle it. I'm done letting others dictate my worth. It's time for Sarah Johnson to soar. 6 months in the city, and I feel like a completely different person. My office view still takes my breath away sometimes. I'm sipping my morning coffee, reviewing notes for a meeting when my phone buzzes. It's Jessica. Sis, you won't believe what's happening back home. I put her on speaker as I tidy up my desk. Spill it, Jess. Robert's empire is crashing down. The IRS is all over his business. There are rumors of fraud, tax evasion, everything. My hand freezes midair. What? How did they find out? Anonymous tips, apparently. Emily's being real quiet about it, but she's got this smug look. I can't help but smile. Good old Emily. My phone buzzes again. It's Michael. I hesitate before answering. Sarah, can we talk? I step out of the office. What is it, Michael? I've changed, Sarah. I stood up to my father. I told him he was wrong about you, about everything. Please, can we try again? I close my eyes, memories flooding back. I'm sorry, Michael, but I've moved on. I hope you find happiness, but it won't be with me. As I hang up, I feel a deep sense of closure. I've outgrown that life. Weeks later, I'm standing backstage at the Women in Business Leadership Conference, my palms sweaty as I review my speech. Emily appears, grinning. You're going to knock them dead, girl. I take a deep breath. I hope so. I still can't believe they asked me to be the keynote speaker. Believe it? You've earned this. As I step onto the stage, the applause is deafening. I spot Jessica in the front row, beaming with pride. 6 months ago, I was ready to give up on my dreams. I begin. I let others define my worth, my place in the world. But standing here today, I want to tell you all, never let anyone dim your light. We all face obstacles, people who try to hold us back. But those obstacles, they're just stepping stones to our success. The rest of the speech flies by, and I realize something. This journey, as hard as it was, led me exactly where I needed to be. I'm no longer that scared, doubtful woman from a small town. I'm Sarah Johnson, businesswoman, mentor, survivor, and I'm just getting started. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed Robert's illegal business practices immediately, or would you have kept quiet to maintain family peace? What do you think is the right thing to do when faced with corruption within your own family?